Hello everyone, this is Stephen Balch, your instructor for Introduction to Microeconomics at Ozarka College. What I want to do today is kind of go over or give you some feedback on the activities that I've graded so far this semester, which would be the Introduce Yourself discussion and the chapters 1 and 2 activities that I finished grading yesterday. And then I'm going to tell you about what we've got coming up due for our next set of chapter activities next week, specifically chapters 3 and 4 activities. All right. So first thing is the Introduce Yourself discussion that we did the first week of class. I thought that went very well. I believe it was due Friday of last week, which was the first week of class. I really enjoyed reading everyone's comments on the Introduce Yourself discussion. Everybody did a good job with presenting kind of a basic introduction about themselves, and I just feel like that's a good way for us to all kind of get to know each other a little bit, and so I really enjoyed that. Hopefully you did as well. The chapters 1 and 2 activities, like I said, I did finish grading those yesterday, I believe yesterday morning. Hopefully you've already gone in and looked at your grades for those activities and read the grading comments. If you haven't done that, go ahead and do that as soon as you can, and let me know if you have any questions. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. Overall, most of you did well on the assignment, and I really appreciate the hard work that most of you are putting in to doing the assignments. It's obvious when I'm reading through the assignments that you're turning in that most of you are putting the required time and effort in, and I really appreciate that. So keep up the good work on that. Now, I did notice there were a few of you who didn't answer each part of each question completely, and so I had to count a few points off for that. Also, there were some of you that didn't submit the first assignment for chapters 1 and 2. So I'm not sure why that is. If you're having problems with anything related to the class, just let me know, and I'll see what I can do to help you and get you back on track. But like I said, overall, most of you did very well on the chapters 1 and 2 activities. It was very obvious from just reading your answers to the questions that you're actually reading the textbook and the other sources, watching the videos, and answering each part of each question completely. So, like I said, I really appreciate that. So keep up the good work on that. The chapters 1 and 2 discussion that we had that dealt with the use of vending machines in Japan and kind of comparing that to the use of vending machines in the United States. And some of the economic problems that Japan is trying to solve with the extensive use of vending machines. I thought everyone really did a good job with that discussion. You really presented some good information in your discussion replies. So keep up the good work on that as well. These discussions are really meant to kind of take one or more concepts that we're learning about in the course and look at a real world situation or case study on that particular concept so that you can learn more about it and learn how it applies in the real world. Okay? So like I said, I really appreciate everyone's effort on that. So keep up the good work. The chapters 1 and 2 objective tests. Most of you did well on that. Just as a reminder, though, you can take those chapter tests as many times as you want to up until the due date, and your highest grade is automatically recorded. So it doesn't hurt to, if you don't do well the first time, just try it again. Keep trying it until you make a grade that you're happy with. Okay? Also, keep in mind that those chapter tests that you take during the semester will be used as one of the learning resources that you'll use to study for the midterm and final exams. So just kind of keep that in mind. All right, so just let me know if you have questions about the chapters 1 and 2 activities or the grading comments that I left. Okay? All right. So that brings us to what we've got coming up due for our next set of activities. So if we go to the activities page, right now we're on kind of the latter part of week 2 of the semester. And of course, we just had work due Tuesday night. And our next set of activities is due next week, specifically Wednesday, September 2nd. Okay? And so you've got just a little under a week to be working on the chapters 3 and 4 activities and get those submitted. So you've got the assignment, test, and discussion all due by Wednesday, September 2nd, which is Wednesday of next week. All right? Chapter 3 will cover economic decision makers, including households, firms, government, and the rest of the world. Okay? So we've kind of already, in chapters 1 and 2, we kind of introduced that circular flow model, if you'll remember, that shows how resources and goods flow through the economy for different decision makers in the economy. Well, in chapter 3, we're going to look at, in more detail about the specific decision makers in the economy, which again are households, firms, government, and then the rest of the world. Okay? And then in chapter 4, we're going to look at 2 concepts that are critical to understanding economics, whether it's macro or micro, either one. But especially in microeconomics that we're learning about in this course, it's important for us to understand 2 basic concepts, which are demand and supply. All right? And that's what chapter 4 deals with. So we're going to look at the law of demand first, then the law of supply, and then we're going to look at how those 2 things come together to create what are called markets. Okay? And of course, in microeconomics, if you remember from chapters 1 and 2, where it talks about the difference between micro and macroeconomics, in microeconomics, we're looking at specific markets within the overall economy. For example, the automobile market or the computer chip market. And because of that, it is very critical that we understand what determines things like prices in that market and how much is demanded in that type of market, how much is going to be supplied in that market. So that's what chapter 4 deals with. And that basic concept in economics of demand and supply is what's going to lay the groundwork or the framework for everything else that we're going to discuss this semester. So it is very critical that you understand the basic concept of demand and supply, markets and prices, because that is going to be a factor in everything that we do the rest of this semester. We're gonna have to understand, in order to understand things like, for example, specific aspects of the labor market or the product market, we've got to first understand the basic demand and supply and how that comes together to create market prices and just markets in general, the structure of the markets. So spend some time on this set of activities because, like I said, it's very critical that we understand these concepts throughout for the remainder of the semester here, because this is what is going to kind of lay the groundwork. We're going to build on what we learn in chapters 3 and 4. We're going to build on it as we go through this semester. All right? So, be working on those activities. Let me know if you have questions, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. That's all I have for you for today. So, enjoy the rest of your week and your weekend, and I will talk to you again next time. Thank you.